What if I told you something extraordinary is already unfolding in your life, and you didn't even realize it? No, this isn't a drill. It's not Mercury in retrograde, and it's definitely not a glitch in the Matrix. This is real. There's a powerful shift happening beneath the surface, one that could rewrite everything you thought you knew about who you are and where you're headed. Here's what most people miss: the signs. They're subtle, easy to ignore. But you're here. And I have a feeling you already sense it. That strange restlessness. That pull in your gut you can't quite explain. Something big is coming. Life-altering. The kind of shift that Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius whispered about when he said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Today, we're diving into 8 undeniable signs that your life is about to change forever. So grab a coffee, or something stronger if it's been that kind of day, get comfortable, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Because once you spot these signs, there's no going back. Let's begin. 1. You feel a deep sense of restlessness. Have you ever woken up and thought, this life doesn't fit me anymore? It's like wearing a winter coat in the middle of a Texas summer. What once kept you safe now just makes it hard to breathe. You look around and feel it. The job you once fought for now feels hollow. You sit in traffic, inching down the same 6-lane highway you've driven for years, wondering, why am I still doing this? Even conversations with friends feel off, as if you're playing a role you've quietly outgrown. You're not broken. You're not crazy. What you're experiencing is what I call a quiet rebellion of the soul. I remember sitting in my car in the parking lot of the company I'd worked at for over a decade. I had my lunch packed, my coffee in a to-go mug, and zero desire to walk through those glass doors. It wasn't laziness, it was something deeper. Like my spirit already knew, this isn't where you belong anymore. But at the time, I didn't have the language for it. I chalked it up to burnout, told myself I just needed a vacation, a long weekend in the mountains maybe. But the feeling didn't go away, it grew louder. Now I know, that restlessness was a signal. A spiritual nudge saying, you've outgrown this life. The Stoics called it the logos, the natural flow of the universe. Marcus Aurelius said, the impediment to action advances action. That discomfort you feel? That frustration? It's not punishment. It's direction. It's the universe reshaping your reality to match the person you're becoming. If you ignore it, it won't go away. It'll escalate. Relationships will fade. Circumstances will shift. Life will push you to grow whether you're ready or not. So if you're feeling trapped, restless, like something inside you is ready to break free, don't run from it. Lean in. Ask yourself, what part of me is being called to evolve? Because that feeling, it's not the end. It's the beginning. 2. Relationships are falling apart quickly. Have you noticed people slowly slipping out of your life lately? Friends you used to text every day now leave your messages on read. Phone calls go unanswered. Invites stop showing up. At first, it's subtle, maybe they're just busy. But then weeks go by. Silence grows louder. And eventually, you ask yourself, what did I do wrong? I've asked myself that question more times than I care to admit. There was a season in my life when everything familiar dissolved almost overnight. Friends I'd known since college grew distant. People I thought would be in my wedding didn't even check in. It was painful. I replayed every conversation, every moment, looking for the mistake. But here's what I've come to understand. This isn't rejection. It's redirection. It's not abandonment. It's alignment. When you begin to grow, life makes room for the new by removing the old. Some people were only meant to walk beside you for a few chapters, not the whole book. As your mindset shifts, your energy shifts, and not everyone will be able to meet you where you're headed. And that's okay. The Stoics reminded us, don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do. People falling away isn't failure, it's nature. A pruning. A clearing. So the right people can find you. Let me be real, it hurts. It can feel like heartbreak without closure. But clinging to relationships that no longer resonate is like dragging dead weight uphill. You weren't made to stay small just to make others comfortable. The people who are meant for your next chapter won't need convincing. They'll match your growth, challenge your thinking, and cheer for your evolution. So if people are leaving, let them. Not with bitterness, but with trust. Trust that what's ahead is better aligned with who you're becoming. Trust that this loneliness is temporary. And most importantly, trust that your soul knows where it's going, even if the road looks empty for now. 3. Strange synchronicities keep happening. Ever feel like life is trying to get your attention in weird, almost eerie ways? You're driving down I-75, lost in thought, and suddenly a billboard flashes a single word that's been echoing in your mind all week. That night, you crack open a book you haven't touched in years, and the first line hits like it was written just for you. The next day, someone in line at Starbucks starts talking about the exact struggle you've been silently battling. At first, it's easy to shrug it off. Coincidence. Random chance. But when it keeps happening, when life keeps circling back to the same signs, you start to wonder, what's going on here? This isn't paranoia. You're not overthinking it. You're becoming aware. The Stoics believe the universe isn't chaotic, it's guided by the logos, a rational, natural order that flows through everything. Marcus Aurelius said, "The universe is change, our life is what our thoughts make it." These strange alignments, these synchronicities, are reminders that you're in motion, that change is already unfolding even if you haven't made a move yet. But here's the mistake most people make. They notice the signs, and then they freeze. They say, "I need more clarity," or "it's probably nothing." And in doing so, they miss the invitation. Because that's what synchronicity is, it's not a guarantee, it's a door slightly cracked open, waiting for you to step through. I've been there. I ignored the nudges. The quotes that kept showing up. The gut feelings. The moments that felt too perfect to be random. I chalked it all up to chance, until the opportunity passed and I realized, it wasn't chance. It was alignment. And I missed it. Stoicism teaches us this: you can't control the signs, but you can choose your response. So if life keeps whispering to you, through people, patterns, or moments that feel too timely, don't dismiss it. Ask yourself, what part of me is being called to change? Because these aren't coincidences. They're coordinates. And they're guiding you home. 4. Unexpected opportunities appear. It always seems to happen on an ordinary Tuesday. You're sipping your morning coffee, checking emails, mentally prepping for another just get through it kind of day, and then, out of nowhere, life drops something in your lap. A former coworker reaches out about a job you weren't looking for. A friend tells you about an opening you'd be perfect for. A chance conversation plants a seed you can't stop thinking about. And your first reaction? Doubt. You think, why now? I'm not ready. What if I mess this up? So you pause. You hesitate. You convince yourself it's probably safer to stick with what you know, even if what you know is slowly draining the life out of you. But here's what Stoic wisdom, and real life, will teach you: opportunity rarely knocks when you feel ready. It knocks when you're just brave enough to answer. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The fear you feel when something unexpected shows up? That's the exact doorway to the life you've been asking for. I almost turned down an opportunity once that completely reshaped my path. It felt too fast, too random, too risky. But deep down, I knew it wasn't random, it was timely. Life wasn't punishing me with uncertainty. It was testing me. Do you trust yourself enough to move before you feel completely in control? Most people talk themselves out of the very thing they've been praying for. They wait for certainty, for a sign that everything will go perfectly. But here's the truth, opportunities don't wait for perfection. They reward courage. So the next time life offers you something unexpected, a chance to grow, pivot, or rise, pause for a moment. Then ask yourself, what if this isn't an accident? What if this is exactly what I've been preparing for, even without realizing it? Because the most life-changing doors rarely come with a warning. They show up. And it's up to you to walk through them. 5. You feel a strange urge to try something new. It doesn't always start with a grand vision. Sometimes, it's just a whisper. A quiet tug at your spirit. An odd curiosity that refuses to go away. Maybe you're a lifelong city dweller, but suddenly, you can't stop thinking about small towns and mountain air. Or you've been working the same stable job for 10 years, and out of nowhere, you feel drawn to painting, gardening, woodworking, or launching that Etsy shop that's been sitting in the back of your mind for years. It doesn't make sense. You've never done it before. You don't know anyone else doing it. And yet, it feels like something is waking up inside you. This isn't coincidence. This is your soul stretching. The Stoics taught us to live in alignment with nature, that internal nature included. Marcus Aurelius said, "Life is neither good nor evil, but only a place for good and evil." In other words, life isn't about comfort zones. It's about listening to what's being stirred up within you. I remember a friend, successful, well-paid, mortgage set, who suddenly became obsessed with farming. Chickens. Compost. Tractor supply stores. Everyone thought he was going off the rails. But a year later, he had a small plot of land and more peace than he'd ever known. Not because farming fixed his life, but because he finally stopped ignoring his inner pull. Here's what you need to understand, these urges aren't random. They're not distractions. They're signals. Invitations. A sign that your current life has hit its ceiling, and a new version of you is trying to be born. Most people push those urges aside. They tell themselves it's just a phase. They wait until the feeling fades, until they forget they were ever called to more. Don't be one of them. If something keeps calling to you, a skill, a place, a lifestyle, pay attention. You don't need to quit everything tomorrow. But you do need to start listening. Because sometimes, the life you're meant to live begins with a small step in a completely new direction. 6. Obstacles are suddenly everywhere. You finally decide to take a leap, start that business, apply for the new role, move to a different city, and suddenly, everything goes wrong. Your car breaks down the morning of an important meeting. A client backs out last minute. Your laptop crashes with your entire proposal hours before the deadline. Friends who promised support go silent. And you start thinking, maybe this is a sign I made a mistake. But what if it's the opposite? The Stoics believed adversity isn't proof that you're on the wrong path, it's often confirmation you're on the right one. Marcus Aurelius famously wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Translation? The obstacle is the way. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. I watched a close friend leave a safe 9 to 5 to launch her own graphic design studio. She planned meticulously. Had savings, a few clients, even a small office space. Within the first 2 months, her biggest client dropped out. Her equipment was stolen. And she got hit with an unexpected $1,200 repair bill on her car. She called me in tears, saying, "I think I ruined my life." But she didn't quit. She kept designing, even if it meant working out of coffee shops. She picked up smaller freelance gigs. 6 months later, one of those small projects led to a contract with a national brand, and completely changed the game. That chaos? It didn't break her. It built her into someone who could actually handle the success she was asking for. Here's the truth most people miss: when you start moving toward real transformation, life will test your commitment. Not to destroy you, but to shape you. To burn off what's weak, so what's strong can remain. So if you're feeling like everything's falling apart, pause. Breathe. You're not failing. You're forging. And what's waiting on the other side of this resistance isn't just a new opportunity, it's a stronger, wiser, more grounded version of you. 7. You start seeing the truth about people and situations. There comes a moment, quiet but undeniable, when the fog lifts. You walk into a room full of familiar faces, but suddenly, everything feels different. The laughter sounds forced. The conversations feel scripted. The people you once leaned on now seem like strangers wearing masks. It's not that they changed overnight. It's that you started seeing clearly. You begin to notice the subtle jabs in a friend's jokes. The conditional love in a relationship you thought was solid. You realize your job, the one you once called your dream, has become a golden cage. And perhaps hardest of all, you start asking the questions you've spent years avoiding. Why am I still here? Why have I tolerated so little for so long? It's jarring. Lonely, even. But it's also powerful. The Stoics understood this shift deeply. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action." That discomfort you feel when you realize the truth isn't there to crush you, it's there to wake you up. Because when you see through the illusions, you stop pretending. And when you stop pretending, you start choosing. You start choosing who gets your time, who earns your trust, and what kind of life you're no longer willing to settle for. You stop chasing people who only show up when it's convenient. You stop clinging to routines that drain your energy. You begin to separate what's real from what's been propped up by your need for belonging. Yes, it's painful. But clarity is never gentle. It strips away comfort so that truth can take its place. I've been there. I once held on to a friendship that felt like home, until I realized I was the only one holding it together. Letting go wasn't easy. But the peace that followed? That was real. So if things feel like they're falling apart, maybe they're actually falling into place. You're not losing your life. You're shedding the version that no longer fits who you're becoming. 8. You feel an unexplainable peace amid the chaos. From the outside, it looks like everything in your life is falling apart. You lost your job. A long-term relationship ended. Friendships faded. The routines that once gave you comfort feel meaningless. You can't remember the last time things felt normal. And yet, strangely, you're calm. There's a stillness inside you that defies logic. You're not panicked. You're not scrambling. Deep down, something tells you, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. That's not apathy. That's not giving up. That's alignment. The Stoics taught that peace doesn't come from perfect circumstances, it comes from accepting what is. Epictetus said, "It's not things that upset us, but our judgment about them." When you stop fighting reality, and start flowing with it, that's when peace enters. Not because life is easy, but because you've stopped resisting the truth. I once spoke to a woman who had just lost her job, her apartment, and was going through a brutal divorce, all within 60 days. And still, she said, for the first time in years, I feel free. That's the paradox. Chaos clears space. It strips away the noise. The obligations. The pressure to keep performing for a life you no longer want. It invites you to rebuild, slowly, intentionally, and authentically. Most people, when life crumbles, rush to patch things up. They chase the old routines, the old relationships, the familiar paycheck, anything to feel safe again. But what if the breakdown is the breakthrough? What if the stillness you feel isn't numbness, it's your inner wisdom taking the wheel? The Stoics would say this moment, right here, is your true power. Not when life is polished and predictable, but when you realize you don't need everything to be okay in order to be at peace. So if you're standing in the middle of the storm, and you feel strangely calm, trust it. That peace isn't weakness. It's a signal. You're not being destroyed. You're being rebuilt. Conclusion. So if you've been noticing these signs, a restless pull, people falling away, strange synchronicities, sudden clarity, this isn't a random phase. It's not a coincidence. It's your life shifting. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. You're not falling apart. You're evolving. The Stoics believe that fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling. So why not lean in with a little courage, maybe even a little swagger, and say, I'm ready. Because once you recognize the signs, you can't unsee them. The next chapter is already being written, and you get to choose how you show up for it. If any of this resonated, drop a comment below. Tell me, which sign hit home for you the most? I read every single one. And if you're ready to keep growing with us, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We're building something real here, a space for truth, courage, and transformation. This is just the beginning. Let's walk forward, together.